today that all you see is violence in movies.
If there is one thing that man has had the propensity for since we first came down from the trees, it's violence. It's described by the Oxford English Dictionary as the exercise of physical force so as to inflict injury on or cause damage to persons or property. According to the World Health Organization, it comes in 3 distinct forms with various subcategories.
Oh, really?
Self-directed, collective, and interpersonal. Self-directed is violence to the self, while collective usually refers to mass acts of violence like armed conflict with groups of people going against one another. Interpersonal violence is between 2 people or a smaller group than what would be considered in a collective violence. Most of the violence we see in the media we consume is interpersonal in one form or another. In this video, I will be using interpersonal violence interchangeably with violence itself. It's generally agreed upon by most people in the world that violence is a bad reversion to our most basic tendencies. It's something that should be always avoided in favor of compromise or rational thinking.
What do you mean by that?
We characterize violence as wrong in all instances until proven to be justified subjectively by the observer.
And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
We condemn until the perpetrators justify their actions. We also take into account just who the perpetrator is. For example, the act of mugging someone in the street is wrong, while fighting off the mugger is not. We would show a little sympathy if the mugger is someone trying to feed his starving family, as opposed to the mugger being someone well off just trying to have fun.
You know how bad you smell. You reek of shit.
But despite our conscious aversion to violence, we see it every day.
Nature.
In the news.
And in the media we consume for our entertainment. Within the last 100 years, the rise of depictions of violence on screen has led to the question, how is it affecting us? Some experts have agreed that a correlation exists between the influence of violence in media and an increase in violent behavior in young people. Others point out that research on the topic has many methodological issues, and that findings are greatly exaggerated to fit agendas. Not to mention the fact that acts of violence have gone down over the years despite an increasing population and accessibility to violent media. But what made people connect violence in media with real-life violence in the first place? There's the obvious answer of propaganda. One of the earliest examples of this is the 1915 film Birth of a Nation, in which the Klansmen are painted as heroes and black people, such as myself, painted as villains. This stoked the flames of racism at the time, and increased the rates of violence towards African Americans across the country. But that's too obvious. This video isn't about propaganda and targeted violence. I'm more concerned with the notion of being violent in general. The concept that a lot of scholars point to when it comes to linking violence and media consumption is social learning theory and its expansion into social cognitive theory. Social learning theory was developed in the 1950s and 60s by this guy, and states that children may learn aggression by viewing others. These 2 theories posit the classic monkey see, monkey do adage. He who sees a thing will do a thing. One part of social cognitive theory is the concept of desensitization. Desensitization is a concept suggesting that with exposure to violence in media over and over and over, a psychological saturation or emotional adjustment takes place in the brain that diminishes and weakens initial levels of anxiety and disgust. I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that these concepts are theories, and there is a lot of debate and evidence for both sides on whether or not these things are true. I don't often hear about certain factors when this topic is discussed. Factors like its severity and impact, or more nuanced discussions like, does viewing violence make one violent, or does it mainly affect those with underlying psychological problems, or those already prone to violence and aggression? I think it goes over the heads of some scholars that humans were violent, arguably much more so in the past than they are now that violent media is widespread. It's my personal theory that instead of people being desensitized to violence, we are generally more sensitive in the modern age. And with the ease of information on TV and on the internet, it feels like violence is much more common than it actually is. This leads into what prompted me to make this video in the first place. The Will Smith Oscar slap. Enough time has passed to where everyone has finally stopped talking about it while still being recent enough to not be completely old news as of this recording. March 27th, 2022 is a date that went down in internet history. On this day, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences were hosting their 94th award ceremony with a live television broadcast. During the broadcast, actor and comedian Chris Rock came on stage to announce the nominees for Best Documentary Feature. He performed a monologue and made jokes while mostly reading off of a teleprompter off-screen. Will Smith and his wife Jada Pinkett, who have had a lot of past marital issues in the public eye, were sitting in the front row of seats.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause.
Chris Rock began ad-libbing a joke about Jada Pinkett's shaved head, comparing her to Demi Moore's character in G.I. Jane. Jada Pinkett has alopecia, a fact Chris Rock did not know at the time. At first, Will Smith can be seen laughing awkwardly along with the audience, while Jada Pinkett is displeased with being made fun of. The next thing Chris Rock knew, Will Smith was walking towards him on stage. Without hesitation, Will Smith smacked him across the face.
Smack!
A smack heard loud and clear by meme creators waiting for something juicy to happen at the ceremony that has been declining in interest. To me, more interesting than the smack were the reactions to the smack and Will Smith's apology. To get this out of the way, I know violence in real life is bad because it actually affects people. What we see on screen is make-believe. I don't condone real-life violence in any way. That being said, in Will Smith's response he says, "Violence in all forms is poisonous and destructive." This got me thinking, Will Smith is an actor in violent movies.
Motherfucker, you can't fight. Look at you.
Mike.
No.
In fact, I remember that time he shoved one man's head into another man's ass. In fact, a lot of these people condemning his actions are in movies that can be considered violent. Why do they have such an aversion to violence all of a sudden? Surely they have played sympathetic characters that do something uncalled for once or twice out of passion. Don't they of all people realize that drama and passion are what make stories interesting? So why are they dogpiling on Will Smith so harshly?
What did he do to make them niggas that mad?
A lot of people responding to the slap definitely don't seem to be desensitized. The slap still very much stunned and disgusted them. And here is my question for this video. Why is violence so beloved in movies and video games, but so frowned upon, even in these small, possibly sympathetic instances in real life? I kind of answered my own question earlier in my disclaimer. It's because of the effect it has on actual people and property. Violence in media is an escape, not just from the tedium of life, but to allow a person to experience violence in a safe and controlled way, free from consequences. It can be an outlet for some people, and I don't see anything wrong with that.
People like violence.
The reality is that Will Smith did something violent in the heat of the moment due to flared up emotions. I think we should have been on the side of understanding rather than condemnation in this case. One of the main things we look at when determining if an act of violence is right or wrong is motivation. As I said, we characterize violence as wrong in all instances until proven to be justified subjectively by the observer. We condemn until the perpetrator justifies their actions.
Bad marriage for life.
Moral panic theory is a theory that is concerned with the cyclical nature of new media. Picture this. A new medium is introduced, and a usually negative opinion is formed by the older members of society. They fund research to confirm their bias and pre-existing beliefs. Sooner or later, they realize that it's not a big deal, and that life will keep going on as normal.
This character over here is called Mewtwo. Now you notice that he has a particular salute that he's given. Now he has 3 fingers, and those 3 fingers are always sticking out like that. On us, they'd be this. It means Hail Satan.
Then the panic dies down until something else pops up to be afraid of. A good example of this is in the Willy Wonka movies. In the 1971 film, the character Mike TV is obsessed with violent TV and movies to the point where he's violent in real life.
I like the killings, huh?
What do you think life's all about?
This was framed as a caution as to what could have been happening to kids during that time if they watched too much TV. In 2005, his character is altered to being obsessed with video games, as that was a major caution parents had about their children in 2005, replacing the fear of watching too much TV. What makes a great action or horror or slasher movie great? What elevates it from the bowels of mediocrity and entertainment on the most basic of levels? I'm looking for that thing, that spark that makes these works of art truly memorable. I'm talking about character. Character is the thing that separates the good films with horrific acts of violence from the bad.
Four is not to make one great.
A fundamental to filmmaking in these genres is the importance of decent characters and motivation. Violence without these fleshed out characters that we care about and understand is boring. I guess sometimes it's cool to turn your brain off and just enjoy what's going on, but generally speaking, we want violence that is justified and understood. This goes back to the average person condemning violence until it's proven to be justified. But does greater violence enhance a story or make it more entertaining? I think it does, but of course, there are limits depending on the person. For example, the Alien movies from Ridley Scott are known to be extremely violent, and people love them for it. But if you strip away the great writing and characters, what do you get? A soulless grab at your wallet. Still though, high levels of violence isn't for everyone. Not everyone can take it in a healthy manner. This includes the impressionable and individuals prone to desensitization. Worry over violence corrupting the mind or being obscene creates censorship. In some cases, the censorship can stifle an artist's vision or help it. Odd examples include the Tarantino movies being stifled on cable, while Avatar on Nick, a kids channel, helps it by forcing the creators to use stakes and solutions other than death. Conflict is fundamental to drama and film, and for that conflict to work, we must care about our characters and their stories. We crave conflict, but prefer it in a safe, controlled environment. This makes the media we consume a safe outlet, because violence in real life infringes on personal freedom, and is only tolerated when the observer deems it justified. Think about that the next time something happens and you say to yourself, yeah, he deserved it. And remember, this video to me was just a thought stemming from the Will Smith slap that turned into an essay with some light research. I'm in no way qualified to talk about the psychology of violence, but still, I hope someone out there got something from this video. So what do you think about this dark and edgy subject matter? You could leave a comment down below, but honestly, I kind of don't care. I'll probably read it though, so do it. Subscribe and, don't commit violence in real life. Drink some water. Bye.